All right, we'll call the meeting to order. And then I will just kind of remind everyone in the audience that this is videoed from different angles, and the sound also picks up in different locations. So even though you're in the audience and you think you're hidden, not from the public, okay? So I just wanted to bring that up before we got going. So, all right, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And Jen, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Thel.
Here.
And Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgments, is there anything you want removed from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under old business, public hearing of ordinance number 1608, amend Appendix B, zoning, Article 2, district regulations. And this deals with the adding of townhomes to the R60 zoning ordinance and changing the maximum lot coverage from 40% to 60%. And what that does is, just giving you a brief background on it, we have condos in town, we have apartments in town. The difference is if you buy a condo, you only own or basically get to use the interior of the building. The building and the grounds are owned by the HOA. If you buy a townhome, the townhome is usually divided with a common wall, and in a townhome, your ownership is the ground and that portion of the building all the way up. So that's the basic description of the difference between the two. We have condos and we have apartments all over town, but we don't have townhomes listed in our ordinance where you can own it as a townhome, where you get to own the ground and the building, that portion of the building as well. So that just brings Madison's ordinance, up to speed with what's happening in other towns around us. The other thing is the change in lot coverage from 40% to 60%. People, when they buy a condo or a townhome, they'd like to have a garage. Well, if you take the lot size and multiply it by 40%, if you put a 24 by 24 garage on, you only have room for a 600 square foot house left on the property. So changing it from 40% to 60% would then allow you to have that double garage and up to 1,200 square feet of living space. So other towns than that don't have the percentages. Madison happens to have the percentage. But moving it from 40 to 60% would allow you to build a house with a double garage on it and up to 1,200 square feet on the main floor, where you wouldn't have to have stairs to go upstairs to make up the difference. So that's kind of what this ordinance is addressing. So is there anyone else that would like to speak to it? Yes, please. Would you come forward and state your name for the people at home?
My name is Karen Matheson. I'd like to speak in support of the ordinance. I lived in Sioux Falls for 20 plus years. I could never afford a house in Sioux Falls. A single professional person, out of the question. I couldn't afford $150,000 to $300,000. I could afford a townhouse, and I did. I bought a townhouse. I was a homeowner. I had that dream. I fulfilled that dream. I made improvements to that property, and it was mine. I sold it. I made a profit. It was good. But here in Madison, there's nothing that I would want to buy. In a single-family house, they're not there. But if there were townhomes available, that's something that I would buy. But without having this ordinance change, it can't happen. I know there are a lot of people who are concerned that, well, they don't want it in their neighborhood. They're not opposed to it, but not in their neighborhood. And I think that that's very, very wrong. It's kind of hateful, but they're saying that they don't want it because they don't want those families with 8 kids hanging out in their neighborhoods. Well, that's not going to happen. If you've seen the people that buy townhomes, it's a young professional, a young couple. Maybe you're going to have 1 kid, they get pregnant with that second child, they know they need to move into a bigger house. This is not a subsidized family property like what Mills has here in town or what Costello's has all over Sioux Falls or Pierre. It's not the same clientele. These are people who take pride of ownership in owning their home. When they outgrow it, they'll move on to a bigger house. They'll buy that single family R60 next door or the R90. And you're just not going to have that same kind of person. They were worried about, well, there's no parks for these R90 or these R60 townhomes. What about that? What about the no parks for the R60 single families or the R90 single families? Aren't those the same concerns? So it's strictly a not in my neighborhood thing. It's not built from a they don't want townhomes thing. It's just they just don't want them in their neighborhood. And they're just not seeing the benefit to Madison. All of these new professionals coming into town, they need someplace to live. If they can't live in Madison, they'll live in Hartford. They'll live outside of town. They'll live somewhere else. We're going to miss out on that property tax, that sales tax, the shopping dollars. And if we don't get that approved here, we're going to miss all of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You just described one of my daughter and son-in-laws. They moved back from Denver and moved into Sioux Falls, and they bought a townhome. And they lived in it till their first son was born. And then when the second baby came along, they did. They moved and bought a bigger home. So, but you know, it is one of the most popular things that people are looking at from the standpoint of less maintenance and property ownership, which you really don't get in an apartment complex or in a condo. The ownership is what's really different. So, anyone else?
We've been talking about this for maybe a month and a half now. At least it's been out in the public.
Right?
Chad, have you heard any negative feedback?
I haven't had any calls on it for this in the specific item. There's another item that's been discussed in the Planning Commission, a rezoned item. That townhome discussion came up during that time, but nobody has called specifically with concerns about this ordinance. So that's correct. We have had a March 25th Planning Commission hearing and first reading before the City Commission on April 1st. So that's some of the timeline you mentioned. We've been talking about this for some time. And then actually there was a meeting prior to the March 25th Planning Commission where it was vetted initially with the Planning Commission to see if this is something that they wanted to pursue, and they wanted to pursue that. So that's why it came forth on March 25th. So I haven't had anybody call and express any concerns.
And I have received phone calls in favor from people that, just like Karen just said, are experienced with the ownership difference, between a condo and a townhome. And talked with one lady for about 40 minutes today. So
Wonderful.
Is there anybody else on?
is there anyone else that would like to speak?
And this is citywide, correct?
Yes.
Citywide in the
Citywide.
R60 district, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Citywide, I'm sorry, Chad, what did you say, 60
Yeah,
what?
R6, we have 3 residential zones. The most spacious or least dense zone would be what I'd refer to as the R90. And then there's that has about a 30% lot coverage. The mayor had mentioned lot coverage, a 30% lot coverage maximum. And then the R60, which currently has a 40% lot coverage maximum. This ordinance changes it to a 60% lot coverage maximum. And then our most dense zone would be an R20. That there's other regulations in there as well, but that has an 80% lot coverage zone, and typically that's apartment type dwellings and such. So this is R60. It makes these townhomes a principal permitted use. And in other words, they would be able to make application for a building permit. If it's in an R60 zone, as long as they met all the other criteria, that building permit would be approved. They would not have to come and go through a conditional use permit or anything like that for the planning commission.
The other thing is that we still have our normal setbacks from the front. We have our side yard setbacks. We have our rear yard setbacks. So it's not like it's going to, take up the entire property. The maximum coverage here would be 60%, so 40% of it, and that still meets all the setback requirements from all four sides. So none of that other changes. So.
This seems to address an issue where this is a fairly common type of home, and it's not addressed in our zoning, so I think this is an appropriate step in the right direction. Sorry, Chad, were you saying something?
The only other point I was going to make, it does add the definition of a townhome as part of the ordinance as well. So there's 3 parts to it. It adds townhomes up to 4 dwellings as a principal permitted use, as I mentioned earlier, changes the max lot coverage from 40 to 60, and then adds a definition for a townhome as well.
These will just be allowed in R60? What happens with R20s, the most dense?
In the R20s, they may be able to be pursued in multiple family dwellings. The language in there depends on how you can interpret it, but they may be able to be inserted in there as well. We'd have to look at it a little bit closer, but R60 was the main one where they weren't allowed in any way, shape, or form. And of course, they're not allowed in R90.
Right.
Anyone else?
There doesn't seem to be much opposition here at this point. It seems to be some support, so I don't see any reason to pull it off. So what's the next step?
I'll go to number 2, approve second reading of ordinance number 1608, amend Appendix B zoning, Article 2, district regulations. And this then would approve the ordinance and move it forward. Discussion.
I'll make a motion we approve second reading of ordinance number 1608, amend Appendix B zoning, Article 2, district regulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Mayor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Excuse me, ordinance. May I do a roll call, please?
Yes.
Good
Yes.
point.
Mr. Corbin?
aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Yes.
Thank you.
We're only in our second term.
All right. Under new business, approve first reading and set a date of hearing for ordinance number 1609, amend Appendix B zoning, R90 and Ag to R60. And this here is located in the northeast portion of Madison, which was a previously approved development that changed ownership twice, and then the third time it changed ownership, it changed, and it still is a development area, but is currently being farmed. Chad, do you want to address this?
Yes, thank you. I can say a few things, Your Honor. I'll start with going over what's in the agenda packet. First is ordinance 1609, which describes the area requested to be rezoned. The second is a notice of publication for this hearing, that the hearing, we're setting a hearing tonight for April 29th. This is first reading. Second reading typically is in 2 weeks, and that will also be a hearing. Also is a petition from the applicant, Nielsen Development LLC. Brent Antonin is the signature provided for the application. There is a map that Mr. Antonin attached to his application. There is a letter dated April 2nd, 2019 from Brad Lawrence, and a map with some markings on there also. And then the final item related to this is the proceedings from the Planning Commission, the draft minutes from April 9th, 2019 for that. Mr. Antonin had approached us and asked about rezoning this area, and guided him through the completion of the application and described the process for him. He was at the meeting, as you could see from these minutes. the Planning Commission. He indicated he's not going to be here tonight, but he is planning to come to the second reading when that comes about, planned for April 29th. So that's all I'll submit at this time, and I'll stand by for questions.
And at this point in time, this is the first reading. And in 2 weeks in that, we will have the second reading and public input. So, anyone that has any questions that they don't get answered between now and second reading, they would be able to be present at the second reading. And so this here being first reading, we do have an audience. Is there anyone in here that has any questions? Okay, with that, since this is first reading, we will have first reading, set a date of hearing, and then we will answer any additional questions at that point in time. And that second reading is set for April 29th.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve first reading, set date of hearing for April 29th for ordinance number 1609, amend Appendix B zoning, R90 and Ag to R60.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, approve first reading and set a date of hearing for ordinance number 1610, amend Appendix B zoning, light manufacturing to R20. And on this one here, I do see that we have people that are in attendance. Chad, do you want to address this, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Also, I'll just say a few things. Included in the agenda packet is ordinance number 1610, which provides the description of the area sought to be rezoned. There is the notice of the anticipated hearing planned for April 29th that you will consider. There is the application or the petition for rezone completed by the Domestic Violence Network. Christina Van Wettering is the signatory on there. A map from the Lake County Beacon System with some markings on that, and a second map from the Lake County Beacon System was also submitted. There's also a letter dated April 2nd, 2019 from Terry Schultz of Red Horse Seed Production for that. And then also I would refer to the unapproved minutes of the Planning Commission, where they did provide their recommendation to approve this zoning change on April 9th. With that, I would also stand by for questions.
Okay. And then at this point in time, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience that has any questions. We will set a date of hearing for April 29th. And then if there are questions or comments, that haven't been answered between now and then, the one thing that I will point out, and that is that this is in a neighborhood that is right along the railroad tracks. And immediately in the next block to the west, there are residences that are in the R60 that are right along the railroad tracks, and then further to the east as well. So this is not in a neighborhood that's an unusual situation, because across the road there's also R60 and R20 as well. So these are things in that if you have any further questions on, you can visit with Chad in the engineering department. But is there anyone at this point that wanted to make any comments or questions, since I know you took time out to be here? Okay. If everyone's comfortable with it, then we will move forward for first reading.
I'll make a motion that we approve first reading and set a date of hearing for, again, April 29th, I assume, for ordinance number 1610, amend Appendix B zoning, ML to R20.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, approve findings and conclusion for building permit application for demolition of 705 North Egan Avenue. And Chad, I'll ask you to address this also. David is not here tonight, but he has provided information for us.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to fill in a bit in his stead. Included in the agenda packet, let's see, approve certain items. Yes, for item 3, approve the finding and conclusions. This is a document prepared by Mr. Jenks after the decision last week of the City Commission to approve the demolition permit application for 705 North Egan Avenue. My understanding is this is a necessary item for any potential appeals processes, and after which consideration is given by you tonight. Unless there's any changes, this document will be forwarded to the State Historical Society. Mr. Jenks had indicated him and his office are going to do that. There's some notice requirements provided that are required from a jurisdiction to the Historic Society before the permit can actually be approved. And so this is a necessary step that has to be accomplished to create a formal document, potentially for appeals and so on. I put my attorney hat on, so that's a little
And is the next step
careful.
in the process,
Yeah.
yes. This has been a lengthy process, and each step has to be approved and moved on before you can go to the next step. So this here is the next step in the process where we are right at this moment. Questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion? And that motion has been written by the attorney so that what we say meets the guidelines of what we're supposed to say. And Jen, I would ask you to read that, please.
Yes, and it should be, according to David, your motion should be to approve and adopt the findings and direct the city attorney to forward the same to the State Historical Preservation Office, please.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, approve the findings and conclusion for building permit application for demolition of 709 North Egan Avenue. And again, this is the same process that we've been going through for 705 North Egan Avenue, and also has the same findings that have taken place in that during this entire process, and would again require the same statement from the attorney directing this to go to the State Historic Preservation Office. Questions or comments? Again, Jen, if you'd read what the attorney wrote.
Once again, that is a motion to approve and adopt the findings and direct the city attorney to forward the same to the State Historical Preservation Office.
So approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5, adopt resolution 2019-05, canvass the votes of a municipal election. And now, since I'm a part of this election, the canvassing will be done by the commissioners on either side of me. I will not be a part of that.
All right, gentlemen. As per the resolution you have in front of you, Resolution 2019-5, Commissioners Jeremiah Corbin, Kelly Johnson, Robert Thill, and Michael Waldner are appointed to the Board of Canvassers because of your position on the governing board. The duties of the Board of Canvassers for the City of Madison are to open the returns from each precinct, which are found in each poll book. So both of you can open up the poll book. Mr. Corbin, you want to open up that poll book, please? You might. Mr. Hill? Satisfy yourself that the returns are genuine and not forged. Tabulate the returns from the precincts and the certification of any provisional ballots, which there are none. And when you're through, declare the result. We declare the result by adopting the resolution.
give your wife a ride, Bob?
No, she went different time.
Really?
The tallies there, gentlemen, at the end of the poll book and/or on the duplicate tally sheet should match the numbers as placed in the resolution number 2019-. Looks like we had an election.
Over here. There's only two on.
Yeah.
What was it supposed to be for 85K? 299.
Kind of throws the whole thing into. You sure you didn't ride there with your wife?
Bob, you sure you didn't ride there with your wife?
Apparently nobody's in the mood. Oh, there they are. 16 and 17.
Yep.
All right, I've seen them now.
And, yeah.
299.
How many do you have over there?
290.
Full voters? 290.
In this.
299 is over here in your total.
Okay, 290. Sorry.
Your voters for Board 1 should be 290.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. That means you're looking at it now. I just
I think I might need more training on this.
Good stuff. If you so choose. It's up to you. If you're comfortable with.
I trust those two
Yeah.
characters.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
We're good over here.
We're good.
Other than
Kids
Bob
ride,
and
I
his
should
wife
say.
rode together. He told me they did.
Yeah, too close together. And number to tell us you didn't ride together.
When you are comfortable, then I would ask for a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-5, canvass the votes of the municipal election.
I make that motion.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And as mayor, and that I am on here, they have voted to pass this, and that, but it will show up that the ordinance will be signed by the current mayor. So even though I will be the one signing it, I was not involved in the canvassing.
Right.
And then from the other standpoint, because it was a 1% difference and falls within the guidelines of the ability to ask for a recount, I do have that as an intention. So that way, it just double checks that everything matches, with the ballot. So with that, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 6, approve application for video lottery machines, Par 4 Tavern LLC.
I'll make a motion, we approve the application for video lottery machines, Par 4 Tavern LLC.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do we have public comment?
I think it was just about the zoning difference, but we'll check.
Okay.
Already spoken to, sir.
All right, already spoken to. Seeing no announcements and that, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are in executive session.